Hello and welcome to my channel on the smoking pit ball of hell that is Earth. I'm kidding! Climate change nerf bags like me, please stay, not until I've scared you a little bit. I'm kidding, I'm not gonna scare, I am not gonna... So, this series on my channel is called A Guide to Positive Panic. It's essentially a series where I am going through the different stages of my own climate panic because of the climate crisis, which is what we're calling it. It's not climate change, climate crisis. Change the language, change the thought process. The idea is to guide you through it along with guiding myself through it. Now, this is the second episode. If you want to watch the first episode, it's linked up here. And after making that video and it being received so well, thank you, the pressure was on to provide you with an instant climate solution and endless climate cuddles to make us all feel like it's not all going to hell in a handbasket. Where do these phrases even come from? Is there an old lady living in my head? Some of the comments and also the voice in my own head was like, so you think you're going to solve climate change, huh, Lena? Think you're going to do it on your own? Huh? Are you going to? What's your answer? Why is it so? Why can we be positive about climate change? What's the answer? I also had these two activists living in my head.
Oh, Lena, I'm so glad you could join us. Come, rub my earth milk into my nipples. Perhaps we could dance now in the moonlight to our own goodness. Make sure you get a picture of my moonstones. Well, personally, I think it's about time you joined us, Lena. I can't believe you haven't been an activist all this time. I've personally given millions. Let's paint this town fair and ball and talk Foucault under the moonlight.
When you're in a bad mood and you think about activism or activists, what words do you associate with that? Just pause the video if you want to be interactive. Take a moment, just free flow, top of your head, words. Here were mine. Self-righteous, boring, culture appropriating, overcommitted, smug. Wow, say the activists watching that. Wow, Lena. I'm just the association word scramble that society has put in my brain. On the other hand, on a good day, when you're thinking favourably of the world and you think that most humans are great, what words do you associate with activism? Well, here were mine. Inspirational, relentless, brave, cleverer than me, willing to give up more comforts than me, cooler than me, knows more about politics than me, knows more about science, knows more about everything than me. An intimidating person it feels impossible to be, basically. I realised I was thinking those things because for me, subconsciously, the word activist is synonymous with that old word, do-gooder. What's a do-gooder, I hear you ask? It's not somebody who does good. If you're an alien from another planet and you just learn English, you'd assume that was the case. Nah. When you think about what a do-gooder is, it's not someone who simply does good in society. No, for them we might use words like legend, my fave, pretty sound, really nice, one of a kind. But a do-gooder just does good to be seen to be doing good, to take being good as a part of their identity, and as a binary result, implying that we are bad. Rude.
Hello?
This is Lena from the future, not your future, that would be weirder, but from this girl's future. When she was recording this video, she didn't realise she would be uploading this video in potentially one of the most flammable protest weeks this year so far in Britain. Cool. Extinction Rebellion protesters are being pulled from trains by commuters. As I speak right now, somebody is scaling Big Ben in the name of the climate, and well, Brexit's about to happen in about 15 fucking days. So future me is going to be appearing at various points to highlight some more specific thoughts I have around what's been going on recently, but I do hope that my points have a kind of more important abstract relevance, as well as my very late attempts to apply those to what is happening right now. I think the debate around Extinction Rebellion is both completely relevant and completely irrelevant to the core of this video, and I hope you join me at the end for a little tag-on note about how I feel about that. I also think it's incredibly relevant to think about the deeper, more uncomfortable aspects of watching other people protest for our lives and judging the way they do it, and kind of looking more introspectively, especially for me, at the reasons I don't apply that blame more widely. I've been thinking about it in my little head since I made the last episode, and I've come up with 3 reasons why both idealising and avoiding the term activist are wrong. Let's not do it. Reason 1. Activists are optimists. And here, in Britain at least, we hate optimists. They make us nervous. Okay, I'm going to try a brain thing on you. So, we're looking at a family, a happy family. They've got Yellow Submarine on in the car. They're on the way on a holiday, and there's those 2 kids in the back and their mum and dad in the front, and it's amazing, and they're in a bright orange car. And the camera pans outwards, and you see the car from above, and it's speeding along a fast highway. What happens next? If your brain just went, car crash. You're like most people. That's an analogy I heard from Brené Brown, OG, God bless, send her up. What a gift to the universe. And it stuck with me ever since. It's this idea of foreboding joy. Any joy that you receive must have some kind of foreboding element to it. Activists are optimists. They think that things can change. Perhaps when you think about activists, you think, actually, I don't want any of the things they're talking about to change. I completely disagree. I would not like the world to be saved. I would not like people to be paid more fairly. I would not like women to be equal with men. Maybe you're that person, but more likely you're the person who hears that activists want things to change and then are made very nervous by the fact that they think that they can be changed. I heard Christiana Figueres say this thing in a podcast. I'll link it in the description. She's the woman who made the Paris Agreement happen. No biggie. Sounds like an activist to me. That the optimism doesn't come from the expected outcome. You don't see the outcome as easy and attainable and go, oh, actually, I feel quite optimistic about that. The optimism comes as a necessary component for success. You can't get success without building that optimism into your plan and into yourself. It doesn't just naturally occur. But I think that activists often make me feel vulnerable, feeling like there is a way that things can change. If that is a possible thing and we fail at it, well, that would be worse than things just being destined to fail anyway, right? Wouldn't it? So aren't we predisposed to think that things can't change, and shouldn't we inherently inspect an attitude within us that's like, oh, it's probably just not attainable, we're probably all going to die anyway. That doesn't sound like truth. That sounds like a defense mechanism from the human brain. 2, activists remind us that we're doing nothing. Not literally. The activists that I've met haven't explicitly gone up to me and been like, well, you're not doing anything. But just spitballing, just thinking aloud here, maybe we treat activists with disdain because they won't put up with the things that we've spent so much time and money and energy trying to cope with. From expensive mindfulness classes to time management apps, expensive sugary goods, all these products and choices and sacrifices just so we can fit into a world that doesn't really fit humans very well. I'm talking about overwork, sleep deprivation, no access to safe food that we can actually eat and doesn't harm our brains and bodies. Sorry, just had a moment of panic there. It's fine. As we know from the last video, it's holding that panic. Don't deny the panic. Accept the panic. Continue. What I'm saying is we're often encouraged to cope with the widening inequality between people by trying to climb to the top, by making sure that you're not that person who gets ill and can't pay their health insurance, and you're not that person who's driven mad by the 9-to-5 job, because you'll be the person who does the 4-hour work week and works from wherever. And then everyone else can stay in 9-to-5 jobs and die early. I read or listened to, because The Guardian, God bless their souls. How many people am I going to bless in this video? So many. The Guardian released their long reads as little podcasts, and I listened to this one called Mindfulness Has Depoliticized Stress by Ronald. And he talks all about how we're being encouraged to buy ourselves out and meditate our way through a lifestyle that is slowly killing us. And he's right. He's right. We've commodified activism to such a degree that I found this on the Body Shop website. Give me a sec. This, people, is a kit parfum for homme, or fragrance kit for men. It's called the Activist TM. I thought it was a joke, but it looks like from their website it's not. So of course I became part of the problem and bought it. Da-da-da-da. Quite rightly. Essentially what I'm saying is I think subconsciously activists are this excruciating reminder that we could have changed things rather than going to these excruciating lengths to surrender our basic needs to fit around a capitalist agenda. Damn those activists to hell! I can cope without family time, meaningful connection, unpoisoned food, and basic security. Thank you. You can keep that. I know it's not for me. Thank you. Number 3, activists are unattainable. Once you say you're an activist, everybody's gonna hold it against you and be all up in your face like, why are you? It can feel like everybody's watching. We've got this post-Catholicism purity complex about it. It is really hard to live your life without being a hypocrite, and yet it seems to be the worst thing you can be on the internet. I think when we don't emphasize self-direction and self-reflection and we go more for the society reflection thing, it becomes very crucible very fast. Tokenism activism is related to what we talked about at the beginning of the video, do-gooders. That fear of being a do-gooder, that hatred of do-gooders, and token activism is part of that. When you feel like you're not a purist activist and you're not doing everything that you say you believe in, even down to whether you use tampons or moon cups, you feel like you're putting yourself up for scrutiny. Token activism can be sharing stuff on your Facebook wall, going on a march, sharing some pithy opinions on your Instagram story, and not pairing that with actual moves towards changing things systemically, making life choices that aren't just neutral to that cause but actively delay or ruin or fight against it. Here's how I think about that now. Now I've thought about it, which I would recommend. Leena recommends thinking, but really, I recommend just giving yourself a few weeks to not have an opinion and think about it. Here's my opinion on that now. I was listening to somebody talk about how they were on the Fridays children's marches and then seeing all the kids like go to McDonald's after they'd gone on the march and getting like chicken nuggets, and how that was hard to watch and how that might stop people from taking them seriously. If you go on a march, even if you don't 100% subscribe to its cause, even if you haven't given your life to it, I think it shifts your outlook mentally. If you have an experience connected to something like that, you're forever more closely associated to that cause internally. You have a tangible experience that's connected to you that associates you with that thing. On that experience, you might meet people who feel more strongly than you, can answer the hesitations that you have, light something inside of you. If you post about that experience on social media, or you tell people you went, your conscience is linking that belief to an identity now. I've externalized it, so I better act on it. In the same way that when I listen to creativity training and creativity talks, people always say, like, you're much more likely to write every day if you call yourself a writer. You're much more likely to paint and feel the permission to paint and feel the permission to ask to be paid to paint if you call yourself a painter, and not just somebody who paints occasionally, lol. And what I also think about token activism is, on a practical level, marches, turnouts, public demonstrations do work. And to make them work, they need to be as big as possible. And pragmatically, we need those bums on those seats. So please come along to a march, even if you're not willing to stop eating meat, calling myself out so hard, or stop doing this thing, or change your lifestyle this way, or never fly again. Gathering attention for a cause is so important. At this point, we can't afford to scan every person who comes on a march for a pure heart. We need bums on seats, or bums walking, or bums whatever. Bums, we need bums. Bums everywhere. Bums as far as the eye can see.
And now a little interlude from future Leena on her thoughts on Extinction Rebellion currently. I would love to go into this in another video that I will be uploading soon, because I've been doing a lot of research around Extinction Rebellion. I completely support most of their tactics. I think the right to protest and the right to disrupt is an integral part of our democracy. I was really saddened to see the public transport protests on the tubes. There is overwhelming evidence, if not widely covered by a lot of newspapers, that these people were rogue outliers who acted against the majority of the Extinction Rebellion's wishes. They even did votes on it and meetings and made a decision, but these people went against it, which I think is really shameful, especially because they were targeting people who live in poorer areas, who are subject to 0-hour contracts, immediate firing, and not protected by the laws when it comes to our employment. But unfortunate outliers, as every movement has, aside, I don't think there's anybody in this country who shouldn't find it troubling that their right to protest has been being stifled by the police. At first they were cleared from everywhere and given Trafalgar Square as the place that they were allowed to protest, and then they were cleared from Trafalgar Square. I find that incredibly chilling, as I think we all should. Another one of my worries, and things I don't think have been as clear in their messaging, or perhaps in the stuff that has been reported about them, is the intersectionality within the group. There is a lot of literature in their book, This Is Not a Drill, that covers that, and I think has done a really good job of being really inclusive when it comes to that and really considerate. I don't think it comes across always in their public persona, and I think that's probably an issue, and around the pressure to be arrested. While I think there are some people that are glorifying arrests, has been proven. Most stats and research suggests that arrests are one of the best ways to change a political movement, especially when they're non-violent. I understand the strategy of being arrested, but I personally haven't witnessed anybody within Extinction Rebellion putting pressure on anyone to be arrested. I'm also saddened by the fact that there isn't that much legal aid for those people who have volunteered to be arrested. So if you do volunteer to be arrestable, they do a lot of training for you and prepare you and give and equip and educate you on what that involves and what you're getting into. But I do understand that there is this dichotomy between people who feel comfortable being arrested, i.e. white middle class people, and everybody else who, for lots of historical and current reasons, feel that their personal safety would be negated by that being their a central tactic, which I completely agree with. I also don't think the criticisms that what they want isn't clear enough are really fair. They're very, very clear on their 3 demands. Tell the truth. They ask that the government truthfully reflect how they're doing with their promises on climate change, and to really reflect the actual proven science when it comes to decision making. Act now, net zero emissions by 2025, and that the government must create a citizens' assembly. See, I could even do that off the top of my head. That's how clear they've been. Greenpeace have just released a really good plan for what they think should happen with climate action, so I'll link that below as well. I think that one is also very worth looking into. But the point that they make that interests me most is the citizens' assembly thing. Past Leena has something to say on this too, so I'm going to hand back to her.
So, like I said before, so many of you asked me in the comments of the first episode, but Leena, what's the answer? It might surprise you to hear that I don't know yet. I've been reading a lot of books on the subject and trying to not jump into a conclusion too fast. It's clear that there are solutions, it's just working out what my next move is. And I hope that you're busy doing the same. I think that part of the meaning of positive panic means that you don't jump into things without thinking about them, and knowing that there's only like 11 years left to really do anything makes things incredibly urgent. But it also means that on a short-term basis I'm focusing quite heavily on trying to work out what the next thing is to do, but also making sure it's the right thing to do and not wasting all of those years pursuing the wrong tactic. Does that make sense? But wouldn't leave you hanging like that. So I do have one thought on a really big important thing that I think I'm going to focus my energies on in the future, and that links to the whole of the rest of this video for this reason. In this video we've been talking about activists, not mentalities of activism, not activist organisations, activists as individuals. If there's one thing I've learned from the politics in at least my country in the last 3 years, is that personality politics is deadly, literally. Our obsession with wanting to like the Prime Minister, to wanting to be able to go for a drink with the Prime Minister, and that means the most qualified person to run the country, is, for me, very indicative of how obsessed we are with the purity and the excellence of individuals. I don't think one person is going to save us, however amazing that person is. And I also don't think one side of politics is going to save us. I don't think left, right, whatever. The answer is more nuanced than that, it's more boring than that, and thankfully it's more possible than that. I think the whole question around whether we should be activists or not is quite individualistic. I think what gets people's backs up about being an activist is all those things I talked about, but it's also maybe, hopefully, this idea, even if it's subconscious, that it shouldn't be one person saving everything. And what are people's assemblies, I hear you ask? Well, let me explain imperfectly.
Citizens' assemblies are official democratic bodies that are elected in the same way that juries are, really. A cross-section of the public that are transparently and carefully chosen, rigorously educated on the facts and all the perspectives around an issue, and they come to a collective and informed decision, a set of recommendations to give the government. It's an idea that's been implemented in lots of other countries, has been working in an overwhelmingly good way to deal with the long-term problem without short-term personality politics ruining it.
I think citizens' assemblies move back to a saner way of deciding what happens for us all in the future. It's taking a fair, random selection of citizens, educating them adequately, and deciding what's best for everyone. Personality politics out of it, career ambitions for the short-sighted 4-year politician out of it, shared vulnerability, shared pain, and fucking hopefully some shared solutions. Tell me in the comments what you think, but ultimately for me, after making this video, have I decided I'm an activist? Yes, I am going to identify that way. Hopefully so it tricks my brain into doing more activism style living rather than just activism style performing. Am I going to be a good activist? Probably not. Is making it part of my identity going to make me more accountable? Probably. More people should start giving themselves permission to admit that they're not comfortable with the way things are, that they're not happy, and coming to terms with that, sitting with that. Is using the word activist a helpful tool to do that? Yes. Oh, so you all want to be activists now, hey? Cool. First idea for what we could do as activists. Tell more people about citizens' assemblies. You can share this video, tweet your favourite outlets, tweet your least favourite outlets, write to the local radio stations, the people who get to the people who don't get to you, and request that they cover citizens' assemblies as a topic. I think more people should know they exist, that they're a possibility. They're in the process of being organised, but it's not happening fast enough, and when they do come, I want as many people as possible to understand what a good thing they are and how it's good news. Because you can change things, but communicating to people that things is good news is hard. Look, it's not life-changing, but it's a start. I'm going to leave with some wise words that I found on Instagram, because I'm a millennial. Do not be daunted by the enormity of the world's grief. Do justly now, love mercy now, walk humbly now. You are not obliged to complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon it. May we be activists that do not complete the work perfectly, but do it with an excited heart, a shrewd brain, and an infuriatingly optimistic spirit. Thank you so much for watching this video. This video was gifted to you by the Gumption Club. I am an independent creator, an independent video journalist, and ain't nobody paying me but the Gumption Club. If you'd like to support the Guide to Positive Panic and the other videos I make on this channel, please consider joining our super friendly group of shrewd and spirited optimists. You can join from as little as $1 and you get lots of free stuff for joining. In my world, there is such thing as a free lunch. Lots more videos coming in this series, so do subscribe. And if you found it in any way helpful, share it with a friend.